This is a magnificent victory for the American people that will allow us to make America great again.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the 10 greatest returns or come-from-behind victories in American political history.
Well, I think America has a redemptive and forgiving spirit.
Number 10, Joe Biden. Joe Biden's 2020 election victory was a remarkable return from the brink of political oblivion. After serving as vice president, Biden chose not to run in 2016.
Out of time, the time necessary to mount a winning campaign for the nomination.
The grief from the loss of his son Beau was still too fresh. The 2017 Charlottesville rally and President Trump's response convinced Biden that democracy was at stake in 2020. Biden struggled in the Democratic primaries, finishing poorly in Iowa and New Hampshire. In South Carolina, Biden turned it around. Strong African-American support and a decisive win revitalized his bid. Super Tuesday solidified his lead, making him the clear frontrunner.
They don't call Super Tuesday for nothing.
In the general election, Biden defeated incumbent Donald Trump. Biden won with over 81 million votes, the most in U.S. history.
The people of this nation have spoken.
Number 9, Warren Harding. After the 1-2 punch of World War I and the deadly Spanish flu pandemic, Americans were looking for a fresh start. Enter Warren Harding, a relatively unknown Republican senator from Ohio. He wasn't thought to have much chance of gaining the Republican nomination, but as other potential nominees faded, he finally secured the nomination on the 10th ballot. Harding had sharp political instincts, and he capitalized on the public's weariness. His campaign for a return to normalcy resonated deeply with the public. Harding's call for stability, paired with widespread dissatisfaction with President Woodrow Wilson's administration, struck the perfect chord. He defeated Democrat James M. Cox in a landslide. His win ushered in the first American shift towards conservatism of the 20th century. Number 8, Grover Cleveland. Grover Cleveland made history as the first Democrat elected president after the Civil War. He broke a lengthy Republican hold on the White House.
Just over 3 years, he went from Mayor Cleveland to Governor Cleveland to President Cleveland.
Cleveland served from 1885 to 1889, where he earned a reputation for integrity and reform. When he ran for re-election in 1888, Cleveland once again won the popular vote. Unfortunately, his bid was stymied by the Electoral College, granting victory to Benjamin Harrison.
The story is that his wife said, take care of the furniture because we're going to be back in 4 years.
His popular vote win ensured that Cleveland retained the support of his party. He was a strong voice against corruption and high tariffs. In 1892, he ran a third time, this time successfully defeating Harrison. With this victory, Cleveland was the first U.S. president to serve 2 non-consecutive terms.
Voters kicked out Benjamin Harrison and brought Grover back to the White House.
Number 7, Donald Trump.
I'll do it again and even better.
The 2024 election was destined to be an historic one, no matter the outcome. But Donald Trump's victory against Kamala Harris, though perhaps not entirely shocking to some, was remarkable within the context of the former president's past 4 years of controversy. After fighting to overturn the results of his 2020 defeat to Joe Biden and the subsequent January 6th insurrection of the Capitol by his supporters, the future of Trump's political career appeared grim. Further, his 2023 indictment, which included a federal charge for his involvement in regards to the quote-unquote stolen election, made it temporarily unclear whether or not he would make the 2024 ballot at all.
What has taken place here is a travesty of justice. We did nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong.
But nevertheless, Trump managed to regain favor and clinch the presidency, making him the second U.S. president in history to serve non-consecutive terms.
But it's a political victory that our country has never seen before, nothing like this.
Number 6, Bill Clinton. Early in the 1992 Democratic primaries, Bill Clinton was seen as falling way behind.
The idea of another unknown governor rising from the South seemed a long shot.
However, a strong second-place finish in New Hampshire enabled him to bounce back. He gave himself the nickname the Comeback Kid, and the media ran with it. He won the presidency and served 2 terms, though his tenure was marred by scandal.
He had endured the grueling and humiliating ride, surviving one political calamity after another.
In 1998, he was successfully impeached, though not convicted by the Senate, over issues related to his affair with an intern. Despite this, Clinton left office in 2001 with huge approval ratings. As a former president, Clinton built on his legacy, focusing on global humanitarian efforts through the Clinton Foundation. He championed health initiatives, disaster relief, and economic development around the world.
My fellow Americans, are we better off today than we were 8 years ago?
Number 5. Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan's 1980 presidential victory was a significant political resurgence. 4 years earlier, the Gipper lost a close race against incumbent Gerald Ford in the primary. His political future seemed uncertain. Fortunately for Reagan, his populist brand of conservatism struck a deep chord with the American public.
Even in defeat, Reagan had stolen the show.
Reagan, proudly and with a healthy dose of folksy charm, pushed an easy-to-absorb message: conservative values, strong defense, and economic reform.
The federal government exists to serve the American people.
In 1980, Americans were battered by gas station lines, economic stagnation, and a hostage crisis in Iran. The initial 1980 general election polls predicted a tight race, but after dominating Jimmy Carter in the debates, Reagan's optimistic message won the day. The election was ultimately a landslide, with Reagan carrying 44 states.
We can and will resolve the problems which now confront us.
Number 4. Richard Nixon. Despite his current reputation, Richard Nixon was a fixture in Washington, D.C. for decades. Nixon first entered the White House as vice president under Dwight D. Eisenhower.
Nixon had taken a calculated risk and again prevailed, becoming one of the youngest vice presidents in American history.
After 2 terms, he won the GOP nomination to extend their post-war dominance into the 1960s. Thanks to the nation's first televised debate, Nixon lost a narrow and contentious race to John F. Kennedy. He tried to pivot, running for governor of California. A bitter defeat seemed to end his career. But thanks to the unpopular war in Vietnam and growing civil unrest, Nixon had one last opportunity in 1968.
It was an enormous risk because if I had lost even one primary, I would have been out of the race.
The turbulent and vicious Democratic primary softened the ground for Tricky Dick in the general election. He won, capping an extraordinary resurgence from ignominious defeat.
My fellow Americans, the long, dark night for America is about to end.
Number 3. Harry Truman. Harry Truman was never a man destined for the White House. He was chosen by Franklin Delano Roosevelt as vice president as part of a grand compromise within the Democratic Party. A year later, FDR died in office and Truman was president. After ending World War II with 2 nuclear bombs, Truman faced daunting challenges at home. Post-war economic upheaval splintered his party. With low approval ratings, Truman was widely considered an underdog against Republican Thomas Dewey. Truman embarked on a vigorous whistle-stop campaign. Traveling the country by train, Truman delivered passionate speeches directly to the American people. Give 'em Hell Harry's feisty vibe resonated with voters. On Election Day, Truman stunned the nation by winning the presidency, defying all expectations and premature headlines. Number 2. Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln may have helped save the Union, but his election in 1860 was far from certain. 2 years prior, Honest Abe lost a high-profile Senate race in Illinois to Stephen A. Douglas. Their series of debates on slavery gained national attention, giving each politician a national profile.
If I had 2 faces, you think I'd be wearing this one?
Lincoln's eloquence and principled stance against the expansion of slavery solidified his reputation within the newly formed Republican Party.
He's telling stories. He's funny. He can talk philosophically.
When the presidential race began, the issue was on the verge of tearing the country apart. The field was crowded with 4 candidates vying for the unenviable job as president. Despite his limited experience, Lincoln won his party's nomination. His moderate platform and ability to unite the party propelled him to victory as the first Republican president.
And then he runs home, as he says, to tell Mary, and famously says, "Mary, Mary, we are elected."
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. Ulysses S Grant. Before Ulysses S. Grant became the hero of the Civil War, he was forced to resign his commission. In 1854, plagued by accusations of alcohol use disorder, Grant left the Army. When war broke out, duty called him back. In an army bereft of and facing down many of its best commanders, Grant's strategic brilliance shone bright. Grant quickly rose through the ranks. becoming the Union's most successful general. Key victories at Vicksburg and Appomattox made him a national hero. In 1868, leveraging his immense popularity, Grant was elected the 18th President of the United States. Despite lingering accusations relating to his alcohol use, his presidency was responsible for post-war advancements in civil rights during Reconstruction. Are you a political junkie or history buff with incredible stories of political comebacks? Let us know in the comments below.
Stubborn, confident, or merely wanting to prove a point, Reagan wouldn't quit.
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.